Okay, good morning. So we're up to Siman Reish Chof Hey, working through the halachas of Shechianu and unusual brachos. So, says the Mechaber Sif Hey, Im Beirach Shechianu al Anovin. If a person, we're living in a place where it's very rare to have grapes, and he makes on the new season, he makes a Shechianu on grapes, they're not available all year round, let's say. K'sheyishte yain chodosh, when he then goes and has some new wine, Einay Chayzer, he doesn't need to make a new shechianu because it's covered by the shechianu he made on the grapes. Says the Mishabur Sivkot as well. Even if he drinks the wine 40 days or more later, he still is covered by the shechianu he made. And even if it's after 40 days where the wine is stronger than the grape juice that it was previously, it's all the same simcha, and it's included in the original shechianu on the grapes. The be'es shera ha'anovim yoda shayayin yetzem. He knows that wine will be made from these things, and therefore it's covered by the shechianu on the grapes. V'ayim b'achreinim sheviu v'yeshom demikol makom tzarich levarich shechianu alayin gam alayin chodosh mishum diyesh besimcha yaseir me'anovim. Other achronim say no, you do make a new bracha on the wine because that's an added simcha. All of the reasons of these brachas of making a shechion on the new fruit is because of the simcha that it generates, and therefore there are two simchas here. There's the simcha on the new grapes, and there's the simcha on the wine that it produces. Valkein toiv she'im beirach shechion al anovim avi k'sheyish yain chodosh. And when you do have later new wine from these grapes, because there is a suffix whether or not you make the shechianu machlekes. Therefore, what to do? Yavarich tchila shechion al ezeh min chodosh al malbush. If you can, try and wear a new item of clothing or something else, a new min chodosh, which would require its own shechianu. Kadei lifta gam es hayayin, that exempts the wine. Avlim berich tchila shechion al hayayin. But if you did the brach of shechion on the wine first, das ha'olas tomid. If you had the wine first, you wouldn't make a new bracha of shechianu on the grapes. When you drink the wine, when it's tiresh, it's grape juice, because that's very evident that it's fresh new wine. If you only drink it when it's properly matured into wine, because you can't really differentiate so much, and you won't know that it's coming from these grapes. Okay, Vov. Now, pre she'ena mischadesh mishana l'shana, a fruit which does not sort of renew itself from season to season, year to year. Afidim yesh yomim rabim shelo yochel mimeno. Even though you haven't eaten this thing for a long time, eina mevarich shechianu, because it's always there. Pre hamischadesh shtei pa'omim b'shana. Sometimes you have a fruit which can have 2 seasons. Then you make a bracha on each time a shechianu. But if it hasn't got a season, then it's not kavua. Then you don't make a bracha shechianu. Therefore, you don't make a bracha on shechianu on new vegetables because they've pretty much been in the ground all year round, and therefore that would not require a new bracha. Okay, says Mishabura Tezayin, she'ena mischadesh, otzolema, she'afilu b'mosach eina mishtana mimeraso, because even in the winter, it doesn't really change. Could go in estrog, good example, right? You've got an estrog, which can be on the tree for a long time. Hasn't got a season where it sort of reproduces each year. Also,
nothing to do with the season, it's got to do with you.
No, but you had so let's see. Kagoin, you'll see, Chaim, you'll see in a second.
There's a shechianu on this.
If you eat, in those days they would eat esrogim, right? So kagoin, let's see, kagoin esrog b'chai gavna, shadar beilana mishana l'shana, it can be on the tree for a while, for many years. Shekim she'emet b'yirakusa kol hashana, ein hana nirgeshes b'chidushay. You don't feel that excitement because it's there for a long time. It's just there the whole time. V'chein ba l'mayit davar she'ein zman kavua legidulei u'chudakam ba'ga. V'chein davar she'ein gidulei karka, kagoin oifes v'dogim, things which are not gidulei karka, for example, fish and meats, sheniz damnula, that came to you, afilu ozen shlotam miminu me'olam, even though you didn't have meat for a long time. Afilu hachi ein mevarich alem shechianu, still you do not make a shechianu on meat and fish that came your way. The zehamin ein a chodesh be'etzem. because the min itself is not new. It's ein chodesh be'etzem. Dafal pi shehu loy ochel mehem. Even though you personally didn't eat from them, acher mochel mehem. So I think Chaim, that answers your question. It's even though you yourself didn't eat from them, and it could be new for you. Their existence now in the world is not a new thing. They've been around for a while. They came your way now, and therefore that doesn't generate shechionu. What about mushrooms? Al kamein and pitrios ein avar shechionu. You don't make shechionu on them. To gam lohem ein zman kavua. They haven't got a fixed sort of season. And also gam me'avir hein gedulim v'lo mekarka. They're sort of made from it's a fungus. Al reach hamischadish mishana neshana. A new smell. K'moi veret, for example, it's the spring and you go to Golders Hill Park and you see new roses. You don't make a new bracha on them. You don't shechionu on them. Or you make a bracha on smelling them, or that we discussed. Shar dvarim shenasu l'orach. Yesh de'es v'poskim mivarach aleim zman. Whether you make a shechion on them, v'na'agu shlo levarach. The minhag is not to make a bracha on new smells. Yesh omrim she'al gedim u'tuloim she'regin nitzchadish pamayim b'shana, on the new crop, if you like, calling them that, of goats and of livestock. Shemivarach aleim shechionu. V'tzarichin is unclear whether you need to make a bracha on them. And the minhag is not to make on your new crop of livestock. Yud Zayin, Siv Cotton Yud Zayin. This is on we said if a crop comes twice a year, mevarchin alav shechianu, b'chol pam upam kiven dal kol ponim b'mizman izman, because it comes periodically, and therefore each half a year you would need to make a new bracha on them, but not on vegetables. Because they're oimid kolashona bekarka, says the Mishnah Berurah Yudches. Rotzoloma sheyesh yerek shedar kilamid kolashona bekarka. You get yerakos which spend the whole year in the ground. Or berchas shechianu lo niskan ela bedova haba mizman mizman. Therefore, it's not seasonal. They don't sort of come about from it's the new season. They've been there all the time. And the Mishnah says, well, it depends, which vegetables we're talking about. And maybe we can't differentiate. And therefore, we are on the side of caution, and we don't make a bracha on new vegetables. The idea of the Ramah is actually we harvest them and we keep them stored underground. That's how they just stay fresh. And therefore it's unclear what is this year's crop and what is last year's crop. Masha'en came papyrus as opposed to fruit. Even though they do store fruit in a similar sort of way, that we're not worried about, because generally speaking, fruit is harvested, each season, and when the new season comes, and therefore that would require a new shechionu. Apple, which is basically potatoes. You don't make a shechion on potatoes. Why? They sort of stay in these pits in the ground for a long time. You don't make a shechion on new vegetables or new bread, because it's not clear what is new, what is old. And people could make mistakes and it will come to bracha v'atola. Because we're going to have the mikol makom mevarchin al harifos, which is like crushed barley, she'esim midogon chodosh, and ikaron heitiv shein chodoshim. That's like a fresh new crop that would necessitate it. Achein the merktzia chelik azeh, he argues the achri she'ein minkar b'taimos yisrael nechem. We don't see any sort of newness to it, and therefore last week's bread was also very good. V'yesh l'mayt the brachos, and therefore we try to minimize the various brachos that we're saying here. Of a kinyas kashen chadoshim, when the kinyas, the beans are new, v'nikarim shein chadoshim, that the kagoyin shein yirakim adayin b'mixas, they're still quite green. Near sheyochel levarach shechion, on that you could make shechion v'chemash bel yarabo. Almin they lift on shekerin myrin v'ribin v'ugukus, which is like cucumbers. V'varchin alem shechionu. Interesting. In 56, if you look at the note there, he says, he goes, this is very relevant to us. Nowadays, again, the whole brach of shechionu is because you are so happy that this new fruit has come about. It's a tosefes simcha, and therefore you make a shechionu. But he says in 56, nowadays, these sort of vegetables and things, they haven't got any particular importance. She'ein noagim levarech aleim. We don't make them. We haven't got the minute to make brachos on these things. Avol mishem chashuv metzlo yivarech aleim. But if you know, these things it's a very subjective thing, and if that's chashuv to you, then you would. For example, what's it called, melons and watermelons and things like that. Mavarchim shechionu v'chein das Rabbi Yashiv. Yeah, now I don't know if watermelons are so chashuv nowadays. Melons, you go into any Tesco, any store, and you'd grocery store, you'd find Baruch Hashem plentiful of all these things. So nowadays the minhag d'chari is not to make the shechionu on that. Okay. Say that. Okay, we'll leave that. Let's move on. Zayin. Eina mevarach shechionu al haboiser. You don't make a shechionu if the fruit is not ripe. Only when it's developed properly. V'chein b'chol pri achar gemara, and so too with all our fruits. You only make the shechionu when it's properly developed. Says the Mishnah Berurah Yotes, Rotzeloma sheyihiyeh nigmar legamri v'tov lemachol, because it's fully developed, ripe, and pleasant to eat. And there's actually a mitzvah to do it, to have all the new fruit, to enjoy the new fruits. And the reason is vatam you're enjoying the delicious fruits of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's world. Okay, ches. Very interesting. Haroya kushi. Again, these are all from the Gemara and Brachos stuff. Nun ches, I think it is. Yeah, nun ches. Haroya kushi. You see a person who's got very dark skin. V'gicher dahainu shehu odom harbe. He's got very red skin. V'halavkon shehu dahainu shehu lovon harbe. He's got very white, very pale skin. V'hakipeach. So these are very unusual sort of sights. V'hakipeach. His stomach is very large. He's sort of, we'll see in the Mishnah exactly what that means. V'hananas, or a midget. V'hadrokoina, is full of warts. Or pesuye rosh, he's got an unusual head. Shekolsa eroso devukas ebezeh, that all the hair is sort of matted together. V'es pil, or an elephant. V'es koif, or a monkey. Mevorech baruch atah Hashem l'knei olam meshane habriyos. To make all these things. Now, again, it's also talking about a situation where this is a very unusual sight. Seeing a very dark-skinned person nowadays in our world is not unusual at all. We're talking about something which is sort of out of the ordinary. A very dark-skinned person, a very red-skinned person, a very white-skinned person. So that's when you'd have to make it. Now, what is this kipeach? Says the Mishnah Berurah Sif Cotton Chof, in Bechiras Daf Mem Hey, it says Mashmatuhu Orach v'Cotton, very long and very small. Or Lefisha Dakhu, and since he is thin, En Yochel Lisbol Kemosa, he can't sort of bear his weight. V'Nikfaf, and therefore he's sort of bent over. V'Dome Kashmisha Chulyos of Shmutos, like his vertebrae is sort of all out of place. So it's an unusual person. Memalef shekolsa erosov, all his hair is sort of matted. V'noilad kach memei imoy, and he was born like that. As we'll see in the next sif. By the way, on the brachos of on making a bracha on an elephant and a monkey, the halacha is one should still do it. No one seems to argue, and therefore when you go to the zoo, unless you're there every day and you work in the zoo, if you go to the zoo on a cholamoy trip, the halacha is you make a bracha on an elephant and on a monkey. The question is, why don't we make it on other animals, a giraffe and a zebra and a lion? Why are they more unusual than a pill and a koif? So there's discussion about that. There are some sources I saw in the Sefer that there are sort of Kabbalistic ideas that people from the Der Hamabel were punished and they came back in the form of elephants and monkeys and things like that. But really what one should do is when you go to the zoo, when you see the monkey and the elephant, you can make this bracha, and have in mind all the other unusual animals and sights that you're going to see. So you can make Meshana Brius on these things. Okay, Tess, let's try and finish off the sif. The simon, Haroyes hachiger. If someone sees a lame person, ves hakiter is an amputee, ves hasumur, a blind person, a mukar shchin, v'habakonin, who's got very sort of blemished skin, v'hushemisha menumim benakudas dakas, lots of sort of freckles and spots. Imheim mimei imay. Imam, if he was born like that, then mevarach meshana habrius. Ve'im nishtane achakach, and if only changed later, then mevarach dayin ho'emes, because it was like he was smitten, as it were. We'll see in the Mishnah Berurah. V'yesh misha omed dedavkal misha mitztaylav. Only if someone's in pain and distress. Al ovid kechavim ein mevarach. But on the Ovid Kechavim, who has all of these stricken with these things, you don't make a bracha. And you only make this bracha the first time you see this person, because it's very strange, very sort of shocking for you. V'yesh Omrim, says the Ramah, Mishloshim Yom, you make it every 30 days. Says in Mishnah Berurah, Chaf Beis Hakitea, Shenikdu lo yodov, Nebuch, his hands were cut off, Hasuma Mishtei Einov, because one eye is not considered sufficiently strange for you to see that. Dakos, he's got these blemishes, these freckles, like lentils, adumim, like red lentils, but between these red blemishes, you've got this white skin, so it's like very sort of shining. Which is like sort of shining. That's the Machzah Sheker V'ayim Beli Rabbi B'Sifrei Megadim Ochenim Shkiach Sham Har Anoshim Kazeh. If loads of people have this, they look like this. Mistaber the Ein Zeh Gnai Loi is not considered strange for him. V'lo Shinu, and not like an unusual thing. Shevarach Al Zeh Dainu Emes U'Meshana Brias. So this again, it's all to do with if this is unusual and an unusual sight. V'chol Shkeim Na'aseh Zeh Al Yidei Choim HaShemesh V'Asim Nistalik. And certainly, if this just came from some sort of exposure to the sun, and it will move away. Near Dulukul Alma in Levarach Al Zeh. In that case, you won't make the bracha. But only these cases is if it's born with it. Says Mishnah Berurah Koyach Kuloi Levad Akitea. That's going on all of them, apart from the person who's had his hands chopped off. Mavorich Dain Emes, because on people, because if he's not born with it, if it came later in life, then you make a different bracha. You make dayan ha'emes. Why? It's like it's some sort of punishment. The dafka of koi al birchas dayan ha'emes. The ena shaykh el lemisha mitzvah matzik adin. You only make that bracha if someone baruch dayan ha'emes, if someone is in pain, distress, and he's matzik the din. Al birchas mishana brias lo shaykh mitzvah dafka midi davia pil v'koif. Like the elephants and the monkey, they're not in pain or distress, and therefore that bracha is not only when there's mitzvah. Aval al akum. Milsa this psika knockout. V'uadin lekol mi she'ena mitzvah alov. It means anyone who's not distressed by it, you don't make the bracha. Ve'ena mevarich. Zekar gama berachas mishana brius. V'ratzolem. But afilu ra kushi achat. Ochia gavna shad dvorim hanal. You see one of the above people we mentioned. Acha shloshim yom gamken in a mevarich, because you saw it once. V'atam dal shinui ein shaykh levarich ra pamarishin sheread dova v'ashinu gadol beinov. The first time you saw it, it was very unusual for you. Or mashmi ataz the kolshkein dukam mechaba berachas dainomis. And certainly on the dain and brachas dainomis, the same applies, that you only make it one time. Omnam b'sefer nahar shalom kosov dinin daino emes sheu davka al krove ve'avish mitzvah lov mistaberim roeh zeh oid al krove acher bevada nigdal lov oid hatzar yosef v'shayich levarech al zeh daino emes. I.e., he says on the daino emes, you see this a second time or third time, and it adds tsar because you see this again, and it sort of opens the wounds again for you to see this. So then you would make the bracha of daino emes again. V'yesh omrim, this is the Ramah that you say every 30 days. Ulamaisa yesh lahiris, so yivarech achash loishim below shem v'malchus. If you see it the first time, you make the bracha properly, and then subsequently, if you see it after 30 days, you make the bracha without shem v'malchus. Mishloshim yom pirush lo ra achar. You haven't seen someone within this 30 days. Okay, let's just finish off the siman. Yud haraya ilanas tovus abrias nois. If you see a beautiful tree, afidu ovid kechavim behema, or you see a very handsome ovid kechavim, or a behema, a very beautiful animal, omer, you make the following bracha: Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam shekocha lo ba'olamai. That there is such a thing in the world. You only make the bracha the first time. And only on subsequent occasions, if the subsequent occasion was even nicer, you saw an even more handsome ovid kechavim, or a more beautiful animal. Says the Mishnah Berurah, when you say brias noise, it can be male or female, bein zechar bein nekevas. But nowadays we don't generally make these brachas. That's the chayodim ein sham tamei. If you see a particularly handsome or beautiful animal or whatever it may be, you can make the bracha, but without shem v'malchus. Ovid gilulim hainu riya ba'alma demuta aval istakel b'yoseh, but to gaze at the person, or lispoina b'dmusa, and to just wonder at his appearance, that would be also. But also lema kamanoi kutizeh, famous Gemara, because mishum lo sechanim. Even if it was more than 30 days. Okay, say that.